Hi, Preethi. Thank you so much for joining us today. And we are super excited to have you here. And on this episode, I did want to obviously, the last time around, we were able to dig into understanding your personal transformational journey. And this time, I think, given that you spoke so much of being an aware and somebody who is invested in the leadership journey, plus supporting others through their journey, I think it brings and begs me to ask a question related to EQ. Given that your investment into this development of leaders and the whole journey, or how the value system that you're trying to bring in, what do you see as the application of EQ that is playing in the, say, the organizational transformation, so to speak?
Thanks for that question, Meera. So, organizational transformation can be very complex process, right? Because it plays around with a lot of your executive presence as when you look at the leadership part of it as also and employee resistance, right? These are some of the common challenges that you always find it, right? That especially employee resistance can be very unsettling for an organization, and a lot of conflict management and a lot of communication that needs to happen, right? It requires really clear and consistent communication that needs to happen within the organization, within the leadership, and within the senior leadership. So there are many elements of organizational transformation that brings in as part of EQ as well, right? I mean, these are challenges of the organizational transformation. Now, how does EQ play a crucial role in organization transformation? It helps the senior leaderships and employees to navigate the emotional complexities. And as I said, any transformation is basically a change that you see in the system or in the ecosystem, right? And when there is a change, there is also a lot of emotions that play into a role. So that is where the emotional complexities of these change, EQ actually fits in pretty well. Now, are we are all not having high EQ? Yes, we do all have a lot of high EQ, or EQ is one of the skills that you can develop, unlike IQ. IQ is developed at the age of 14, and after that, it doesn't go through much changes. But EQ involves a lot of adaptation that comes with your experiences, and it also comes through your reflection. And that's why a lot of reflective process happens. The first thing, like Daniel Goleman, who is also one of the person who wrote the EQ part of it and defined the different realms of it. I think one of the things that he calls is your self-awareness, and even also, how would you manage yourself, right? That self-regulation, a lot of motivation, empathy, and social skills actually come in. And if you look at all these four elements or the five elements, all these play a very critical role for the team to move in, right? And just going a little bit more deeper on why this EQ plays the organizational transformation and how can it bring positive change, like the way I was talking about the employee resistance, right? EQ kind of helps you in adaptability and resilience across the organization. Okay. And it's also important. Communication is something. I think every organization needs to have communication. And when there is communication, empathy comes in by itself. I know a lot of people say empathy is different, but I say that, empathetic communication instead of like just saying communication, right? It's about how can you bring empathy in your communication to foster an environment. That's where, a lot of the EQ part of it would come in. All these actually enhances the leadership style. It also brings a positive environment. And a lot of studies have gone in from Harvard, actually has put in a lot, there's a lot of emotional journeys and emphasis of transformation that leaders need to take through, or even the organization are like very well, spoken about in various research and most of the places. Actually, it leads to a very tangible changes within the organization, helping the success of the business to strive. I think I'll take a pause here. I know I told you a lot of technical terms that comes with EQ, right? And as I said, I've personally applied EQ in my leadership style. I've applied for myself as well. So it's very vast as such.
Hmm. Thank you so much. And definitely, I do have a follow-up question on this. I mean, are there any specific instances that come to your mind that just pop on your head, at the top of your head right now, when I kind of ask about when, say, when you're focusing on EQ, have you seen any tangible results? Because I'm sure a lot of us live in this black and white era where we want to know that, hey, are there results? Are there not results? Do you see it? Do you not see it? And I think that is the perspective that I'm coming from, where I want to understand, is it that when there is a high awareness, there is high level of EQ within individuals, within organizations, do you see some sort of tangible results that come out of it?
Of course, I mean, more as I said, right? It's all EQ is as simple, just to put in the simple terms, is basically ability for you to recognize just not your emotions, Meera. It's also important to recognize the emotion of the other person and manage how you respond. I think Stephen Covey's there's a beautiful example which says he says, right, I think your response is in that the pause with the stimulus that you have, that you need to identify that pause, right? Now, how does this apply? This directly has an impact on your interaction, right? Your decision making, your relationship building. A lot of it actually puts in those, naturally it falls into your place, right? Now let me actually give you two examples of this. One on, how an organizational transformation would happen with EQ as such, and also how relationship building would happen. And also I'll talk about, in a very high conflicting situation, how EQ can apply, right? So uh, a lot of us believe that, past, and I think Marshall Goldsmith also keeps says that, in the book, like, what got you here would not get you there. I think I'm like not telling the title of the book rightly, but in his first book, right? And it's very human for us. A lot of our past experience that worked for us, we believe that is our success mantra, right? And we get hooked on to that. And most of the times it might work, and most of the times it doesn't work, especially as you grow in your leadership journey. It Your past success will add value, but I think more that you need to learn, and the more you keep yourself open minded and an open door, is where most of the transformation happens, right? And the reason why I said, if you get hooked onto your past, right, that's where your growth also kind of stops. Of course, your past has brought in a lot of change within you, right? I remember working with one of these leaders. I mean, he was my peer. I mean, we both were leaders together, and he was my peer basically. Right. So and he was on the technical side, and I was managing people, and I was a tech manager, and he was an architect per se. So we were managing a team, a very huge team. Right. And this person was really technical, and I really, all of them in the organization valued his technical ability, right? That was very, very good. But when it came down to, and this is where I said you get hooked onto your past, right? He was very successful in the past, right? I mean, on applying, and of course sometimes, your team molds themselves to adapt to a leader. It works well for a certain extent, but it's not an organization that can thrive. It can be an organization that can be successful because it's molding to a leader, but it cannot thrive for long. It cannot sustain for long, right? So this person was good technically, but he didn't listen, right? While there are different ideas, because in past I have done this and this is work, let's go ahead with it, especially when there are things that would come in, right? And yeah, as and this is where I think I go back to the collective energy a lot of time, right? A team can work very well when there is a collaboration coming into picture, and that's the collective energy that I'm talking about. And that collective energy is nothing but a collective set of emotions that is coming together, right? And the moment it becomes emotional, it becomes very complex. So when you don't have the ability to listen, there is also the growth stops. It just doesn't stop for you, but it also stops for the organization. One of the things that I generally tell leaders is, if you don't grow, your organization will not grow. And it's very important for you to self-realize that you need to grow, right? So that becomes very, very important. So the growth for growth, it becomes very important, right? And that's why I tell a lot of women as well, right? They stop themselves as well.